You know, witches, it's come to my attention over the past week or so that when it comes to the Coven of fans for this show, we're not all on the same page spellbook-wise as to how things are going. I am shocked. As I tweeted, the toxicity seems to be coming from inside the fandom. What the heck, man? I mean, I thought we were all behind this show, but yet I find some of you just want it to be all about Agatha and Rio. Some of you don't like the way Wiccan is developing. I am shocked, but let's discuss. Even tonight, I tweeted how wonderful Joe Locke was, and I got some spirited responses from some of you. So again, as I said, let's discuss. So Joe Locke, yes, I'll give some of you your due. Joe Locke, I know a lot of you these days want authenticity in casting. And Joe Locke is not Jewish, but he is gay. And I think that in an episode that's largely an info dump for those who don't read the comics and don't know Wiccan's origin story, what gives this episode its soul, not just, in the story, but emotionally, is Mr. Joe Locke. I think he pulls it all together beautifully. But yes, for as overall faithful as Jack Schaefer is to the comics, there are two fundamental changes. It's true. It's true. All right, so one, in the comics, Billy Kaplan is Billy Kaplan. Yes, he's the reincarnation of Wanda's son, but from birth. So he fully forms his identity as Mr. Billy Kaplan. He doesn't feel he's in someone else's body, stuck in someone else's family. That's his body. That's his life. That's his family. He just finds himself drawn to the Scarlet Witch. He's not sure why. He's, in the comics, he starts out just as a fan. He doesn't realize why he's a fan. So, but here in the MCU, it's different. Billy Kaplan is just, as Agatha puts it, an empty vessel that Billy Maximoff takes refuge in. He's like, I see another Billy right nearby, so that he could survive. He doesn't remember Billy Kaplan's past, but he also doesn't even remember his own past as Billy Maximoff. He just knows this is not his body. And we'll get back to more of that, further, the whole origin thing in a moment, but it's a big change, particularly for those of you who love Billy Kaplan. Clearly, this is Billy Maximoff. Even when, I loved the moment when he has to reintroduce himself to Agatha because he doesn't realize at first she can't hear him. And she says, "Who are you?" And he says, "Billy Kaplan." And she says, "Come again." And I think in that moment, he thinks she sees through the lie, although many of you would argue it's not a lie. And that's why he responds, "Billy Maximoff." Again, powerful moment, unless you're a huge Billy Kaplan fan. And then you're like, what the F, Jack? What the F? All right, so 2, what's the other big fundamental change? Here, Billy is not looking for Wanda. And I'm sure that upset some Wanda fans who are like, "Whoa, Billy, we were all in your corner until you decided to change the direction we were headed in." I think it's touching. All right, but anyway, in the comics, he's drawn, as I said, to the Scarlet Witch right away as a fan. And then as he's a young Avenger, they come across Tommy, but Billy doesn't know that's Tommy. They're just like, "Whoa, you guys sure look a lot alike. Weird." And then later on, the two of them discover who they are together, which leads them to decide to look for their mother in the net. Although, of course, that's Billy Kaplan still feels that I believe it's Rebecca Kaplan is his mother, but the mother of his, I guess, his soul. So they decide to go look for, so it's, it's a complex thing, but he decides in the comics to go look for Wanda, with his brother. And that's the famous Children's Crusade storyline that I'm sure you've heard about already. And they do find her where she's under the influence of Doom, which is why it's rumored that in the upcoming Avengers Doomsday movie, there will be Wanda or some version of Wanda who's involved with Robert Downey Jr., which, as I tweeted, would really be a bad idea in the MCU, because in the MCU, we discussed this on the Twitters. Tony killed Wanda's parents, inadvertently, but he did. Then he locked her up against her will in Civil War. I mean, it's pretty bad for him to then be romantically involved with her in any capacity. I feel I wouldn't do it, Marvel. As I also tweeted, can the MCU handle Wanda if Jack Schaefer isn't protecting her? Although I'm sure some of you are like, who's protecting Billy Kaplan? All right. But here in the MCU, Billy does not want to look for his mother. I guess he believes the word on the street that she's dead. He wrote it in his book. His priority, his notebook, the reason he's on the road is that he wants to find his brother. Again, I thought it was touching, but some of you did not agree. And some hardcore Wiccan fans I can understand why you might have a problem with these changes. I gotta say, you're being a real stickler for some of these specificities. What is this, a DC story? That's usually the headache that DC has to deal with. I mean, in the past, Marvel MCU fans have been pretty forgiving with changes that they've made because, elements are there, which is the case here. But it does not seem to be going over the same way. All right, so Jack Schaefer, she's adjusting Wiccan's history to match what she's building in the MCU. But as she adjusts Wiccan, she also further expands her own mythology, and I think in very interesting ways. Remember how Agatha said a coven is always drawn to each other witches in close proximity? Well, sure enough, the other witches were already drawn to Billy. Although even, I guess, in the order is interesting. So Lilia knew him when he was Billy Kaplan. She was hired to read palms at Billy Kaplan's bar mitzvah. And when she sees his palm, she sees that his lifeline is broken in two. 2 lives, 2 souls for one body. She even tells him to enjoy the now because she knows he doesn't have long left. In the reflection, she sees who he'll become, Billy Maximoff. And we discover that it's Lilia who placed the sigil on him. And sure enough, as soon as she puts that, I guess, is that a rune too? But as soon as she puts that thing in his pocket, she instantly forgets it because, as we know, that's what happens to the witch who places the sigil. But why did she do that? Why did she feel that she needed to hide him? Did she know who he'd soon be? These questions remain and need to be answered. And I hope the answers are more satisfying than the answer to the question, when did Agatha know that Teen was Billy Maximoff? Because I don't buy her answer at all. She's saying she suspected it right away. It doesn't mesh at all with her behavior. Maybe she's covering because, she thought he was maybe Nicholas Scratch. She was acting very strongly on that wish, educated wish. That was a great line from Deadpool and Wolverine. But she really wanted that to be true. And she, I think in many ways felt that it was very hopeful. She really thought maybe it was. So I think that line is covering. I don't think she knew it was him until, again, at the very end of the last episode. So I don't know why I was not satisfied with that response. Usually I'm like, oh, I get it because it's this and it's motivated by these emotions and it's really this. Here I was just like, don't like that line. After they got into the accident though, when it was Billy Maximoff, who showed up first on the scene? Alice, when she was still on the police force, the protection witch. And whose skincare videos is Billy drawn to? Jennifer Kale's. And sure enough, he even listens to Lorna Woo's ballad, The Witch's Road, in his room. Perhaps he wasn't drawn to Agatha. None of the other witches were, because she was hidden in Wanda's spell. I think that's what explains that. And I love the line, with the sigil now destroyed. And Billy says, oh, to Agatha, you can finally hear me. She says, any witch with a beating heart can hear you. And I think we all thought the same thing. Wanda? I don't think she's truly dead. She might be near death. I think she's lost the will to live. But when she maybe hears this, she might be like, well, what's that now? And gets back up, gets back in the game. So I think that'll be very interesting. Although, it's apparently, Multiverse of Madness, she died at the end of Multiverse of Madness, and it was established in Multiverse of Madness that it's against the rules to inhibit a dead body. And Agatha even says here it's against the rules. But, I looked it up. That seemed to be more about dead variants, and then also Doctor Strange clearly inhabited a corpse, whereas Billy Kaplan Maximoff, maybe that's what we should call him, is very much still alive. So these two things are clearly not the same. I loved, and I see that many of you do as well, because in many ways it's obviously a metaphor for so many things. But when Agatha tells Billy not to feel guilty about who he is, a witch, taking over, using his talents, taking over an empty vessel to becoming someone new, which I think probably speaks to a lot of people as well, because it means he was able to survive. He fought to survive, which is what she says witches have always done. And I thought I liked also, I've got to say, it was a great moment when she was trying to count how many people she'd killed, and she was just like, my fair share. We'll talk more about Agatha in a moment, but Catherine Hahn continues to deliver. I think it's interesting that as Billy teen steps forward and is, this kinder person, Agatha retreats back more into the villain space. All right, but it gives the show balance. I love that this episode was on the longer side, but let's be honest, it was wildly uneven, and a lot of those extra minutes were not put to good use. So let's talk about the good and the less good. I guess let's do the less good first to get it out of the way, because there's not that much of it, and we want to end on a positive note. And I'll be curious what you liked and didn't like about this episode down below. Wiccan fans are like, oh yeah, all right, I'll fill out the form. All right, where's the suggestion box? Kevin Feige's like, don't have one. I guess the suggestion box would be the box office and viewership. All right, so I thought that Billy's origin story after, when he made the switch, which I loved, we'll talk about that. But I thought after that, a little rushed, particularly when he was piecing everything together about who he really was. Like, when did he develop an interest in magic? I was like, when'd you get that spell book in there? Like, whatever. Like, he also must have been practicing a little bit. He's like, release spell. And I'm like, where did this all come from? Because, only in this episode, in this short flashback sequence, did he find out that he was even connected to the Scarlet Witch. He did figure out that what happened in Westview was a spell, not an Avengers training exercise gone wrong. But I think it would have been nice to see his interest and experience with magic, to see it first blossom and then grow. But we didn't. It was just already there. For some reason, though, Billy Kaplan liked magic as well, with the Houdini posters in his room. I wonder why that was there. I thought that's an interesting, confusing choice. Also, the other posters were very nicely chosen as well. Powerful magic, right? For also animating the dead in the Black Cauldron. A Strange World in Alice in Wonderland. And then, of course, with Oz, following a road to get a wish at the end. So I like that. Also, we did not need to see Billy's half of Agatha's police detective illusion. It wasn't that funny. Bohner family reunion t-shirt aside. And I know a lot of you got a kick out of him saying he didn't want to be thrown back in the closet. Get it? But it just wasn't worth that lost time. You were like, we could have used this time so much more constructively. Like, it didn't add anything new to the story. It didn't further develop the characters. I didn't need to see how polite he was on his side. It just wasn't necessary. And also, just like Billy isn't Nicholas, I don't think Eddie is Teddy, even though their names rhyme. He's a great actor. I like the actor actually even more so after I saw him in Smile 2, where he's charming. But how could he be Teddy? Big, buff Teddy? Fans will riot if he's Teddy. But Eddie does call Billy his black heart, which of course is what Rio says she is for Agatha, right? So maybe he is Teddy? He's Hulkling in the comics. So, obviously Bruce Banner isn't very big, even though when he's powered up, he is. So he could be smaller. And I really don't think fans are going to like this. So I would advise Jack Schaefer not to do this. But, Hulkling, aka Teddy, is half shape-shifting Skrull, but also half Kree. So that could be him. But again, I think they're going to have a hard time selling the Wiccan changes. I think it might be just, you're going to make the fans choke if you try and make this Teddy. All right. So now, although Kit Connor doesn't want to do it, he doesn't want to act opposite Joe Locke for the rest of his life. He's made that very clear, I'm afraid. And he already looked fantastic as Captain America. Okay. Now let's talk about the good. And there is more good than bad, thankfully. Whew, don't mess up another show, Disney Plus. All right, so I thought that the actual switch when Maximoff became Kaplan was very touching, largely thanks again to Joe Locke's performance. As Billy Kaplan's heart slowed to a stop, I thought that was amazing to hear his heartbeat, again, slow to a stop. So to do it with audio, I thought was very touching. And it was hard to hear them. I had to turn on the captions. I don't know how some of you watch these shows with captions. I think it's distracting because they finish the sentence often. My mind reads it faster than the actor can perform it. And it ruins it ruins the moment for me. But anyway, I turned it on so I could see what was actually being said. And it was Billy and Tommy being tucked in at the end of WandaVision when Wanda thought she was putting them to sleep forever. But, it turns out almost immediately, Billy wakes up in this new body. And I thought it was a beautiful moment when he wakes up and he says, the first thing... they weren't even that close on the WandaVision, by the way. I'm like, wow, I'm glad that you guys I'm sure Wanda and Vision will be thrilled to know that the bond was there. But the first thing he says is Tommy. I guess that maybe should have given it away a little bit. He didn't say mom. She didn't, to be fair, she did not spend a lot of time with them. She did have Agatha watching them instead. All right, but as the internet has been quick to point out, there are some issues here. However, as we discuss the issues, you'll see I'm going to solve them. So why did Wanda tear apart the multiverse looking for her sons when at least one of them was only just a few miles away? Oh, the Sigil! Oh, that's what it was! She, even hidden from all witches, even Wanda. So why would Lilia hide Wanda Maximoff's son from her? Did she know what she was doing? Did she know she was hiding Billy from Wanda? Oh, now I've got to know what happened. But that's very clever, and I wish they had made that more clear. I guess they just didn't want to pay Elizabeth Olsen, which is frustrating. How does it also not occur to Billy, once he realizes exactly what happened to him, that he should look for other deaths in the vicinity at the same time as Billy Kaplan's? Because Tommy most likely jumped into one of those bodies. But then again, Tommy is not a witch. He's a speedster. He probably cannot jump to another body. So his soul is maybe running around real fast out there somewhere, lost for 3 years. Oh, that's going to be harsh. So, although why couldn't Wanda find that one? Anyway, will Billy's next task, I love this, by the way, wait till you hear this, will it be to find a body for his brother? But maybe, since they're twins, oh, I so hope this happens. Maybe he'll find a way to copy himself and create a new body for his brother. And that's how they could be twins. And that would allow Joe Locke to play both roles. What an acting challenge that would be for him. I would love that for Joe Locke. Wouldn't that be cool if that were true? That they don't recast. I mean, it would be extremely expensive. So I don't know if Kevin Feige would be willing to pay for it. But it would make me so happy if it were true. All right, nice touch to have Wanda's sitcom, by the way, coming through on the radio. Although it didn't seem to match the time period as to when that was actually happening. But anyway, I also liked Ralph Bohner's line, "Welcome back, Ralph, but I'm not seeing you're playing Paramus." That sounded truly awful. That's why Billy just decided to pay him. And he got the Westview title card. Oh, but don't worry. It seems that, they can switch who's on what title card, because some of the, usually the title card that goes to one of the members of the Salem 7, it went to some of the actors from this week's episode. So somebody else could still go on that title card. But I liked when he referred to Wanda's sons as the little speedster and his mind-reading brother. Great line, delivered very nicely. Evan Peters, we love you. And Billy, who can read minds, realizing, oh, he's talking about me. As if there weren't enough Jean Grey comparisons already. Now Billy has telepathy, and he seemed a lot like he should be heading maybe over to Xavier's school. Although, of course, in the comics, Wanda is a mutant. But anyway, Wanda's never actually shown that ability. But in WandaVision, Billy had telepathy. He also could create and manipulate psychic energy along with telekinesis, just like Mom. Had mental control, all of these things which he's done in Agatha All Along. Telepathy, by the way, extremely helpful when you have to try to pretend to be somebody else. You can read the minds and they're like, why doesn't he do this? And he's like, oh, okay. For 3 years. Again, 3 years. Wow. He also could see the future in WandaVision, like Lilia, fascinatingly. I think that's very interesting, but he hasn't used that ability yet here in this show. Also, he and his brother, as you might recall, could age up periodically. So you'd think he'd be less shocked to find himself in the body of a full-blown teenager, but maybe it was being another body that was what threw him. But, would he have lost that ability? Will he age up yet again? I'm surprised they didn't use that to get him to be a full-blown teenager. But, I think obviously Wiccan fans would have been furious that they didn't do the reincarnation bit. I don't think Ralph Bohner actually gave them too much he didn't give them a lot of depth. He did allow Billy to realize that he was the son of the Scarlet Witch, and that he had a brother, right? But also he gave them a very important name, and that's Agatha Harkness. Wow, that was a very effective internet search. I was like, wow, all your answers were right there. That's amazing. What an ad for the internet. Although I did think Agatha as Jolene was a pretty funny gag, and the internet seems pretty delighted in that as well. And again, I guess it's a song gag too, because, there's music is a big part of the show. But he doesn't know what Agatha did to his mother. He actually doesn't know that much about Agatha at all, even though he said he was a super fan. All he knows is that she survived the Witch's Road, that she's very old and very powerful. So That kind of takes a little bit out of their interactions as well. I would love it if he recalled what happened and what went down with his babysitter. Because, Billy did fight back. All right, so the last few minutes of this episode are the aftermath of episode 5, where Agatha crawled out of that mud pit. Good for her. What a fighter. Well, you learn that it was indeed Billy's first time using these, magic energy powers. But unfortunately, I can't believe it. He lost them already. He can't really control them or summon them. So that's frustrating because I thought he was going to be fully powerful right away. But no, he's back to square one. How MCU Disney Plus. I liked when he told Agatha power doesn't interest him and she shot back, keep telling yourself that. That Agatha, her walls might be fully back up, but it is so nice to see her in full villain mode once again, complete with evil mustache. I thought that was great when she took her muddy hair and made a mustache out of it. And more killer lines, like calling the twins Wanda's flesh and wires. Oh, I loved it. And Vision, Robo-Papa. That was great. And also when she accidentally called Tommy Toby by accident. She was like, oh yeah, that's what I meant. It was great. They agreed to finish the Witch's Road together, but now they don't trust each other. The trust is gone. I think they'll get it back. But we get that great line from the trailer where Agatha says, last one there is a nice person. And then as she walks off, Billy mutters, I'm not that nice. And I think we all had the exact same reaction. Again, keep telling yourself that, Billy. You're the nicest person we've ever met. I mean, we've seen nothing but sweetheart behavior for this entire origin story episode. But it led me to think, maybe he doesn't want to be a nice person. Maybe he realizes that is a little bit of a liability. And while we wait for Wanda to return, for her to claw her way back, she's got to come out from under a lot of rubble, right? Maybe Agatha could train him. Maybe he would want Agatha to train him because he could get that edge that he feels he needs. And also learn from a witch who's a witch unapologetically, something that even Wanda has never achieved. So I like that. 3 episodes left, and I think we kind of now have an idea of what they're going to be. We have 2 trials to go. Lilia's, we need to find out why she placed that sigil on him, right? And Teen's, or maybe he finds Tommy's soul, right? And rumor has it that one of the episodes is also going to be an Agatha origin story about her and Rio. Where is Rio? Where is she, right? Why wasn't she drawn to Billy? Although if you know the spoiler about her, you would know that she should be aware of what happened. And if she was, considering it's against the rules, why did she allow it to happen? I'm very curious to see what's going on there. So what did you think? I loved Joe Locke's performance. Again, I think he gave this episode a soul. But I think that if you already know Wiccan's backstory, the episode was a bit of a lull. More checking boxes than I think really telling the story. I think, again, they always kind of do this with these Disney Plus shows. It's like, it should have just been Wiccan's story. It just should have been a show about Wiccan. But, instead it's a show about Agatha. And then Wiccan's shoehorned in there. And then you have the Agatha fans and the Wiccan fans fighting about whose show it is. Why do you do it? So anyway, also, why do Disney Plus shows seem to be following a formula? And so I've seen some of you point this out. There's always a big reveal in episode 5, then in episode 6, it's kind of a lull. You think you're going to keep running, but then they kind of slow down for a minute. And, and they give you some further explanation, but yeah, the Acolyte just did the same thing. And I don't know why they keep doing it since it doesn't seem to totally work. Why would you let up on the gas pedal just when things were getting really cool? It's weird. All right, so again, but wow, how can anybody have a problem with Joe Locke? He is just, I hope you finally saw what so many of us who've seen him in Heartstopper love about this guy. I think he's just so charming and charismatic. All right, so share your thoughts down below, subscribe today, and of course, as always, you can check out some more videos right now.